Initially, when Apple announced the brand new iPad Pro and the updated iPad Air today, I thought the story was pretty simple. iPad Air gets bigger, iPad Pro has OLED and is thin. However, I started to look into these and see what Apple didn't tell us, because the truth is, for the first time ever, I think Apple told us just as many things as they didn't tell us about these products, and I learned a lot making this video, so I hope it helps you out as well. Because starting off with the new iPad Pro, that Apple did put an M4 chip inside. The first time in history, Apple has launched flagship silicon in a tablet. And also for the first time, the M4 chip in this iPad is really different, because there's two different versions of the M4 chip. Just like on a MacBook, how you can get the M1 or the M1 with a little bit more cores or RAM, well, you can now do that in an iPad, and Apple has segmented it out by how much money you want to spend and how much storage you want internally. There are 4 different storage capacities: a 256 gig, 512, 1 terabyte, and 2 terabyte. And Apple has basically drawn a line down the middle of the 2 lower end storages and the 2 higher end storages that give you lower end and higher end specs and options. So on the 2 cheapest iPad Pros, you're getting an M4 chip with a 9-core CPU and 8 gigabytes of RAM. But on the 2 most expensive iPad Pros, you're getting an M4 chip with a slightly better 10-core CPU, as well as double the RAM at 16 gigabytes. The thing is, it's not super clear when you're buying the iPad Pro that you're actually getting more performance depending on how much money you spend. You actually have to click on this box on Apple's website to explain why you would need more storage, and then Apple breaks down the differences between the different models. But what Apple does make clear here is that the 1 or 2 terabyte iPad Pros do get an exclusive display option, because it is only on the 1 or 2 terabyte iPad Pro that you can get the new nano texture matte and anti-reflective display, which I genuinely think is one of the biggest announcements a lot of people are glossing over. Is Apple has never offered this on an iPad. It will inherently feel more like paper than before and should be a huge improvement for artists. But you can only get it if you spend $2,000 on your iPad. It is locked down to the highest storage capacities, and then they charge you an extra $100 for the nano texture finish, which just seems like a lot of money for an iPad. And I know that the new OLED screens look sick, and there is the fastest M4 in that model, but man, I think that they should have offered this nano texture option on the $999 option. I cannot believe they've locked it to the highest storage tiers. And hey, if you are spending the extra money on the new matte nano texture display, Apple says in the box you get a special polishing cloth that will be just dedicated to wiping off the display. So you do get that polishing cloth for the extra money as well, which it's a pretty compelling thing to spend the extra money on. Yeah, one weird call of actually quite a few here. Like on the back of the iPad Pro, Apple straight up removed a camera without verbally mentioning it whatsoever. It is now a single camera system down from a dual camera system. Apple completely removed the ultra wide lens on the back of the iPad Pro. The one that they just added back in 2020 is gone, with zero explanation as to why. We also don't actually know what this is next to the camera now, because they've moved the LiDAR sensor to be below it, and over to the side there's this random black hole, and we don't know what it is or what it does. Very odd, but at least Apple fixed the front FaceTime camera, so you'll now be centered on FaceTime calls, which I could not be more excited for. One camera is not the only thing that Apple removed, however, because Apple has also removed a microphone from the iPad Pro. It goes down to 4 studio quality microphones from 5, which is another unexplainable change. Like, I know the iPad Pro is crazy thin, and in the photos that we have seen of this product, it is miraculous to hold in your hand. It's significantly thinner and lighter. But losing a microphone again in the same year is a pretty significant price increase is a hot take to me personally. And I'm very curious if there's going to be a noticeable audio difference in these 2 iPad Pros, something I'm very much looking forward to test. Another weird thing about this iPad Pro is that to use an Apple Pencil with it, you have to buy a new one. It's compatible with 2 Apple Pencils only, the newest Apple Pencil Pro and also the cheaper $79 USB-C Apple Pencil. Those are the only 2. If you have an Apple Pencil 2nd gen, like the one that was on the market for 6 years since 2018, it does not work. Not compatible with this new iPad Pro, even though the charging and syncing mechanism magnetically on the side is the exact same. And with this new iPad Pro having USB-C once again, I've been rocking these new retractable 60-watt cables from Basis, who actually sponsored today's video. Straight up, this is the most fun I've ever had with a USB-C cable, because when you need the length, it's there, and when you don't, it goes right back to square one. It's an intuitive design that you use by just pulling one end of the cable, and it extends equally on both sides. And with Basis being the world's #1 for retractable products, it's rated for 50,000 plus pulse cycles, so you are good for a very long time. The thing is, the cable is also fast. It charges your devices at up to 60 watts of power, which is super quick for the iPhone. You're maxing out fast charging there, and also incredibly fast for this new iPad Pro or even something like your MacBook, which is even more impressive when you consider just how thin this cable is. It's ridiculous. There are 4 different fun colors to choose from here. You have black and white, of course, but also a blue and purple option as well. And right now you can grab a Basis 60-watt USB-C retractable cable when you use one of my links down below in the description. A huge thank you to Basis for sponsoring this one and for letting me have some fun today. Okay, now let's get back to the video. While we're on the topic of things we removed, I should also mention that the 5G technically got worse here. Apple completely removed the fastest millimeter wave, which supports gigabit speeds. All models now only support the sub 6 gigahertz, which is still 5G, but it's the slower version of 5G. And I don't know why Apple removed the fast version if it's an iPad Pro. I've never had a 5G iPad, but if I was spending the money on a 5G iPad, and the last one had more speeds than the new one, I'm trying to say I'm confused by all of this. I've just mentioned a number of things that Apple took away in this new version, and I don't get it. Now, when you combine all these things that Apple removed together, they don't take away broadly from my experience with the iPad Pro, and I'm not even saying that these are the wrong decisions and trade-offs that Apple had to make to achieve this crazy new design. However, I do think there's a lot of people and some niche customers for the iPad Pro, and these people are just gonna hold on to their old iPad Pro if it is better in a lot of key ways. Now, there is some really good news for this iPad Pro in that battery life is staying the same. Apple is once again keeping the battery life at 10 hours, which is now, I think, a 14-year streak of the same battery life, but keeping it this thin with a more crazy OLED screen and keeping the battery life the same, I think that's actually more impressive than it looks like on the spec sheet for it to be the same battery life. But 10 hours is pretty good for how thin this thing is. Also, I mentioned a price increase. Yeah, the base iPad Pro is now $999, which is a $200 jump from the previous price of $799. But you are getting a much better display for that price, being OLED instead of LCD, and the base storage has been doubled. It used to be 128 gigabytes, but it is now 256 gigabytes on the cheapest iPad, which is a nice touch. Next, the iPad Air also got updated at this event with a new 13-inch screen size, just like its bigger brother, the iPad Pro. And in this bigger version, the screen actually gets brighter than the 11-inch iPad Air. It looks like you get 100 nits of extra brightness if you spend the more money on the 13-inch iPad Air, which for $800 is an actually insane deal. That 13-inch iPad Air is probably the best model to buy and the best bang for your buck. And speaking of money, both base models of the iPad Air have double storage for the same price. That cheapest 11-inch iPad Air for $599 now starts at 128 gigabytes of storage, which is double the 64 we had prior. And I think it's really made the value of this mid-tier iPad to be a lot more appealing now. Apple also added Wi-Fi 6E inside of these new iPad Airs, which is cool as well. Latest Bluetooth 5.3, so spec updates there. Now, as we get into the accessories, the new Apple Pencil as well as the tweaked Magic Keyboard. Some confusing stuff here too. The new Magic Keyboard, for example, is only compatible with the new iPad Pro. It is not available for the same sized iPad Air models, as Apple mentions on their website. So the row of function keys that does have an escape key, which I'm so excited for, thank you. Thank you, Apple, for the escape key. I should not be this excited for an escape key on a keyboard, but I am. Thank you, Apple, for the escape key on this keyboard, as well as the larger trackpad that is made out of glass and haptic feedback. That is all coming for the iPad Pro specifically. It appears that the new iPad Airs are only compatible with the last generation Magic Keyboard, which is weird considering that they're the exact same size. The refresh Magic Keyboard does have a USB-C port on it as well, but it is still only for pass-through charging. Apple is not adding an additional data port for your iPad here, which is such a big miss if this is supposed to be a laptop replacement. Honestly, the new Magic Keyboard is just a better build quality version of the last one. It is not the major refresh that I thought we'd be getting, and even the outside seems to still be made of that same polyurethane material that doesn't hold up the best. The second big new accessory update, though, was an Apple Pencil Pro that Apple released, which has some really unique features like the ability to use a barrel roll gesture to select new tools. It's got haptic feedback now, which is incredible, and it looks the exact same as the Apple Pencil 2. I am shocked that they announced the same design with the matte finish once again. I really thought 6 years into the Apple Pencil we would get a new design, but nope, it is the exact same look aesthetically as the last version from from 2018. And it doesn't have an eraser. It doesn't, and I don't know how else to tell you that. I just had to do a hard switch there into telling you it doesn't have an eraser because, well, I was hoping that like a decade into iPad pencils we would get it. Nope, so cool. Can't wait to spend another 130 bucks on that one. Maybe my favorite part about the new Apple Pencil though is that we get this chart for it now, which is actually real. This is on Apple's website. You can see it for yourself with your own peepers. And this is how Apple currently describes the differentiation between their 4 different Apple Pencils. Listen, I know that this video has started to trend a bit negative, and honestly, it's because that's how I feel. I had some really high expectations for this iPad Pro, especially with such a long time in between updates and 6 years since the last redesign. And while design-wise, I think Apple crushed it and this thing is incredible, there are still only 2 colors. We have black and white. Apple's removed a lot of features and we still don't actually know how it is more of a laptop than your MacBook. Because the software, iPadOS, remains unchanged again. And I know that WWDC is coming up and that Apple's going to announce all the new software there in a month, but the thing is, we've said that the software is going to get better for a decade now. And once again, Apple has released the most beautiful tablet on the market with some absolutely insane design language, incredible power with the M4 chip, and some cool accessories, all things considered. It still runs iPadOS. I guess I was just hoping to see something that blew my mind a bit more in these accessories or software department. And even saying all this, I'm still so excited to get that new iPad Pro. I want it to be thinner. I think that's so cool. I think that's the coolest thing ever, and maybe if those trade-offs happen because of that, that's fine. I just wish Apple would say that instead of sneakily removing cameras and microphones and basically hoping that we don't notice. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it helped you learn something or I don't know. I'm tired because I woke up at 6 a.m. for an Apple event. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.